I had the most exciting call of my entire career the other day, and I got to do some pretty Hollywood shit. Let's talk about it, but please understand this video is rated M for mature. So there I was in Taco Bell trying to take a piss when we got a call for a stabbing. So we fly over to this residential area, and everybody in the entire neighborhood is out looking at all the ambulances and cop cars. As we walk on scene, a BLS crew is coming around the corner, and they are bagging their patient. We load up into their truck with our ALS gear, and they let us know that it's a stab wound secured with a tourniquet, but he had bled a car length of blood. Apparently, they found him laying next to a car, and there was exactly one Toyota Corolla amount of blood. So it's an unorthodox estimate, but it definitely gets the point across that this gentleman needs some help. So we start delegating tasks, and I chose airway management. We weren't getting good compliance with the BVM, so I began setting up for intubation just as we started flying towards the hospital. So I had never attempted a real intubation at this point, but I wasn't going to say that now. So right as I had everything set up and ready to go, I asked my preceptor if it would make sense to have the driver stop for a sec so that I could make an attempt. In my defense, I've been on a call before where we'll have the driver stop for a sec so we could start a line or do whatever, but that was in a much less acute situation, obviously. So I'm not exactly sure what it was my preceptor said, but it was something that made it seem he wasn't sure I was speaking English. So there I am, in the back of a speeding truck with a Mac 4, a 7.0 tube, and a dream. So I go in, I lift up, and I see vocal cords. I couldn't believe it. They're beautiful. I had heard so much about them, I thought they were a myth at this point. So I was able to get the tube in. Couldn't really hear lung sounds because of all the commotion, but we got good capno back, so I was stoked. About 4 or 5 ventilations in, his pulse went from weak and thready to not at all. So now we're doing CPR. Not a Lucas device in sight, I might add. But thankfully we were pretty close to the hospital, but now I'm super stoked. In fact, I was so stoked that as we're unloading from the ambulance, I passed the BVM off to an EMT so that I could straddle the patient and do compressions that way. So now I'm riding into the hospital on top of the patient where people are telling me to duck my head as we're going through doorways. And by people, I mean the 30 plus people that come to watch or be a part of a traumatic arrest. So if I wasn't already the center of attention, I definitely was when I smashed the back of my head on one of those big lights they have above the bed in the trauma room. So that was sick. I then decided to roll off the patient and onto the bed to get out of the way, which in my defense was a pretty effective way of moving, but I'm probably the only person to ever do a dive roll in the hospital's trauma room, so, leave it to the TikTok guy to be the most dramatic person in the entire emergency room. And then to top it all off, the doctor quieted the room to ask me what the story was, and I realized I have no idea what the story was, so I just looked at him and said, "It's a stab wound." Like, "Oh, thanks. It's also Wednesday. Is there anything else you'd like to add?" Thankfully, my supervisor stepped in because he did know the story and he saved me. But it was at that point I realized I have a much deeper appreciation for the depth that goes into being good at this job. Like, patient care-wise, I did great, but not without looking like a douchebag. If you made it this far in the story, please believe me when I tell you nobody is safe from the learning curve, especially in healthcare. I hope that whatever career you are in is treating you well, and to that trauma team, I promise to never do a combat role in your room ever again. I'll see you on the next one. Be mad good.